Basketball season is over. Baseball season might be over. Team's struggling right now. Perfect time for spring football to start. Sonny Dyke spoke with the media after the first practice on Saturday. What does Sonny think about this team and where they're at after seeing them on the practice field for the first time in a few months? That coming up next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're on the YouTubes. That sounded like an old person. We're on YouTube. You can subscribe there. We're also wherever you get your favorite podcast and its audio variety. Results from the weekend. Baseball loses 2 out of 3 to Oklahoma State. They're now 2-7 in conference play. Kirk Saarloos' club has to turn things around fast. They have dug themselves quite the hole here early in conference play. Men's basketball falls to Utah State on Friday night. I did a live show after that game, a post-game recap. If you want to check that out, it's up on the podcast feed and on YouTube. Women, they went up to Starkville to play Mississippi State. They fell the Bulldogs, and their season came to an end in the second round of the WBIT. Men's tennis got swept by Texas, so not the best weekend from a results perspective for TCU spring sports. But let me say this. Spring practice is here. Football season is starting up. I mean, it's not starting up. We're still in the off season. But we have actual practice to talk about. We have actual things that are happening with the team once again. And Sonny Dyke spoke with the media after that first practice on Saturday. Guys are back on the field today. I assume they're in the indoor facility because down towards Central Texas, we had a lot of rain here. I know that was at least on the radar in Fort Worth as well. So that's my guess. But they're back on the field. Haas Haney's there, freshman quarterback. A lot of new transfers, a bunch of new faces. What did Sonny Dykes have to say about this team and where they are after hitting the field for the first time in a few months? So he liked the energy and effort, both from the players and coaches. He made some interesting comments at the end of this press conference, or just, it wasn't really a press conference, just kind of the gaggle of media that was there asking questions. But he talked about the coaching staff, and now he's got some new faces there as well, right? You got a new defense coordinator named Diavalos, linebackers coach and Ken Wilson. New running backs coach who's there as well. Jimmy Smith, the running backs coach, came over from Arkansas. So you got some new people here. And he liked the energy. He liked the attitude they brought to it. And he said, listen, the players are going to follow the coach's example. Like, we have to have an energy and an attitude about us, and then the players will sense that, and they'll take it and run with it. And he said he felt like last year they lost their edge, which – I would agree with that. As confounding as it is, I really thought, and I've said this before, I'm not going to belabor the point for too long. Coming off that national championship, in some ways, it was the perfect recipe for motivation going into next season. Because the guys that were there, they saw what it took to have some high highs, to go undefeated in the regular season, to make it to a Big 12 championship game, to win a playoff game. And then they also had kind of a reality check in the national title game of, okay, this is how far we have to go to reach the heights of what Georgia is doing, what Alabama has been doing. We'll see what they do now under new coach in Kalen DeBoer, the upper echelon of the sport. That didn't happen. They come out flat. They lose to Colorado. We know the story. And Sonny said multiple times last season, didn't feel like the team was ready. For whatever reason, practice wasn't translating in games. So there was a disconnect there. And he thought they lost their edge. So he felt like that was back, at least in the first practice of the season. The energy, the effort, all that was good. Josh Hoover, not available. He's not going to be practicing. He should be back in June, apparently. That's the timeline for his injury. But not going through spring practice, which means Ken Seals and Haas Haney are getting more reps. Should be good for both of them. Sonny said that. He also said he was impressed with what the guys did. They made plays. It's going to be a learning process for both these players, though. And one aspect of this that is disappointing, both these guys are learning the offense, right? Ken Seals coming over from Vandy. He's learning what Kendall Briles wants to do, the verbiage, all those things. Haas Haney coming in as a freshman, same type of thing. I do wonder if giving Haas these reps could provide an opening for not starting, but if they're going to use him in some different ways during the season, just the confidence to say, okay, he had a lot of opportunities in the spring. He did well with it. Let's set up some ways to use his athleticism and get him on the field and have him as a weapon once the season starts. So quarterback play, an opportunity for both these guys to show what they can do and also just get a chance to get out there and get acclimated with this new offense. Guys that stood out to him on the field, Major Everhart and Cam Cook. Major Everhart, one of those slot receivers. And that's a good name to know. You know, when we talk about like X factors, players that can step up that you wouldn't typically expect, I'm pretty excited about this receiver room. I like Eric McAllister, the transfer from Boise State, Savion Williams on the outside, possibly Braylon James, maybe Blake Knoll also getting involved on the outside as well. And then those slot guys, I mean, there's a number of them that I think can make plays. It starts with John Paul Richardson. JoJo Earl seemed to kind of find himself late in the season. And Major Everhart was somebody that they used at times. He showed some explosiveness. He's got great speed. And Sonny said he just looked like a different person out there. That confidence of having a year under your belt, knowing what's expected of you at practice, knowing what, you know, the script's going to look like, understanding the offense, all of those things being really beneficial for him as he hit the field for the first time. So a name to watch as we talk about, could he be a weapon? Cam Cook, a lot of eyes on him this spring because there's a ton of uncertainty in that running back room. Who's going to be the dude? Who's going to step up and make it happen? Cam Cook seems like the most likely player. I know our friend Tanner, who listens and watches, frequently comments on YouTube, he's super excited about Cam Cook. And he could very well end up being your lead back and do a great job with it. We just didn't see a ton of him last year because Monty Bailey got a lot of the carries. Trent Battle also working in there. Nate Palmer, Jeremy Payne, Trey Sanders, who was really involved in short yardage situations last year. And I think if the offensive line is better, then he'll have more opportunities in short yardage and goal line situations this season as well. Speaking of the offensive line, they're just in shells, so just in helmets on Saturday. Monday, just helmets and shorts as well. I think later this week is when the pads come on. And, I mean, Sonny said, hey, we're not really able to evaluate O-line and D-line without full pads. I mean, you can go good on good, but there's no contact happening. And he hopes that everybody's going to look better once pads come on. Some guys look really good when it's just, you know, non-contact, running against air, those types of things. But then pads start popping and things change. So this team's got to be physical. They have to have an attitude about them, a physicality about them. And that starts in the trenches. So they brought in a lot of different guys to try to address that. He talked about transfers, kind of their change in philosophy, and going after a lot of guys in the portal who have experience, who have played it in the college world, played college football, regardless of the level. They understand what it takes to be successful at the FBS or FCS level, and hopefully that's going to help them get acclimated more quickly. You know, last season, they went after a lot of players that didn't have a ton of experience, whether that be because they dealt with some injuries at their last stop or just young guys that hadn't seen the field yet at a certain school. And so they're going a little bit different direction this year. Another name that came up, that has come up in many, many off seasons now for TCU football, Marcel Brooks. But I will say this, Marcel's bounced around his whole career. He was on defense when he first got over here from LSU. Then Coach P and that staff tried the wide receiver experiment. That did not work. Last few seasons, he's been back at defense playing linebacker, but he's dealt with injuries. He did make some plays in 2022, just was injured off and on, and so couldn't play, you know, a ton of games. Marcel Brooks is working at the stud linebacker position in Andy Avalos' defense, which means he's, you know, standing up on the edge. Also will be asked to go out and cover guys at times. It's an outside linebacker spot. I don't think you can put a ton of expectations on Marcel Brooks at this point. I know he's super talented. I know physically it's all there. All the tools are there for a really successful defensive player. And he was a factor on that 2019 LSU team that's one of the best teams in college football history. As a young player, too. He got snaps on that team. He made plays. I'm not sure he can be an every down type of guy. It's kind of been proven, unfortunately, that he struggles staying healthy. Not his fault. Totally get it. I will say this. And we've said this in the past about Marcel, and it's never really come to fruition, but he hasn't been in this type of role. He's been playing a linebacker, but linebackers in Joe Gillespie's offense were not super aggressive going downhill. They were asked to, play in zone coverage, kind of stay off the line, make plays when they could, those types of things. As a situational pass rusher, Marcel Brooks, I think, can make some splash plays for you. Not going to be all the time. I wouldn't expect 7 or 8 sacks, but his speed, his athleticism, his ability to get off the ball could give offensive linemen trouble, I think, in some short samples. And if that's what you get out of him, then I think that's great. It's more than you've got in the last few years, and you just hope he can stay healthy and he can be a factor throughout the season. But that is a name to watch. Marcel Brooks, again, changing positions. But, in this case, he was already playing linebacker. His responsibility is just going to move over a little bit, and he'll be in that stud linebacker spot. And that's sort of one of the bigger questions on this defense. Is it going to be Jonathan Bax? Could it be Devin Deal, who's coming over from Tulane? Who will step up in that role and become your kind of all-everything pass rusher / able to leak out into coverage, do all the responsibilities they're asked of you? That's going to be one of the big questions this offseason, and we should get a better window and view into it as spring practice rolls along. Again, practice happening once again today. Sure, we will hear more from the guys after that and Sonny Dykes himself. But we got football. We have real football on the horizon as TCU prepares for the 2024 season. 15 practices now, 14. And after today, it'll be 13 for Sonny Dykes' crew to try and get better before summer workouts sort of bleeds into the fall. When we come back, TCU was also active on the recruiting trail. A new commit from Spring, Texas on the defensive side of the ball. We'll talk about that next. Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team, and we do it here every day. Our friends at Nissan have been bringing you March Madness highlights all month long. Unfortunately, TCU bows out early in the tournament, but I know you guys are still working with your bracket. Maybe you're still betting with our friends at FanDuel. You should go to shop now at NissanUSA.com. Again, that's NissanUSA.com to shop now and check out their new line of 2024 vehicles, specifically the SUVs, the Rogue, the Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada. The Iowa State Cyclones, which TCU knows them well, they can only be described as a Pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch and have created a lane for themselves, entering the tournament as one of the hottest teams in the country. They will take on Illinois on Thursday in the Sweet 16. Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, and the Nissan Armada. Go find your next big adventure at NissanUSA.com. Shop now, again, at NissanUSA.com. Their new line of 2024 SUVs. They will change what you believe about SUVs in general. Thank you to Nissan for bringing you our March Madness highlights, doing that all month long and throughout the tournament. Speaking of and all the great things that come with it, FanDuel. If you haven't tried FanDuel, it's a great time to do it. You can go to FanDuel.com/lockedon or download the FanDuel app today. And that's FanDuel.com/lockedon or Dual app today. One $5 bet. If you win that bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. Again, that's one $5 bet. Win that bet, get $150 in bonus bets. Sorry if the overlay is kind of jumping around here. Apparently having some issues with my internet. I'll try to get that resolved. But FanDuel.com/lockedon or the FanDuel app. Try it today. FanDuel, it's where the game starts. proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. TCU landed another commit for the 2025 class, starting to slowly build that 2025 commit list. Floyd Guidry, defensive lineman from Spring, Texas, listed as a D end, at least on 247, but when I watched his huddle page, he was mainly playing the interior, kind of a 3 technique, at times a 1 technique, but really good size, 6'1", 275 pounds. Last season at Spring, he had 26 tackles for loss, 47 tackles overall, and 6 sacks. So found a way to get the quarterback. Really impressive offer list from Floyd. Baylor, Cal, LSU, Houston. And I was, as I was like checking Floyd out and seeing what his game was like, I stumbled upon a video from Inside Texas, which covers Texas Longhorns recruiting. And Texas had offered Floyd Guidry. And one of their analysts said that he would be shocked if Floyd didn't end up in Austin because they were there early in the process, that he's rated as a 3-star prospect right now, but his offer list is more impressive than that, and that Texas had made him a priority and they were really trying to go after him. But TCU gets to the bell first, and they get Floyd Guidry committed. Again, defensive lineman, Spring, Texas. And watching his huddle tape, I mean, he looks strong. Like, there wasn't – the highlights that I watched, not a ton of variety in pass rushing moves because he was just simply throwing people back, like driving offensive linemen back into the quarterback, shedding blockers, making plays happen. And I said this before the season, or earlier this offseason, I guess I should say. With Andy Avalos coming on board, one thing that I'm interested in, and, you know, honestly, Joe Gillespie, for all the issues they had finding ways to get to the quarterback, I thought he and the staff did a pretty good job of getting impact defensive linemen. You know, they landed Marcus Deal. They landed Davion Carter. Got Travis Jackson in the fold for this upcoming class. So they did find some what I think are going to be really impact players in the next few years. But I am optimistic that it should be easier in this defense that's going to be more aggressive, that has a play caller now that is known for matching up defensive linemen and edge rushers in positive situations to make plays. That should be more attractive to guys coming out of high school. Because defensive linemen, they want to rush the passer. They want to make splash plays. They want to get sacks. That's how you win games. That's how you get paid and get to the next level. And so all those things are going to be really beneficial for TCU. Guidry, though, has played most of his career on the interior. So not sure exactly what their vision is for him. I think it'll be kind of one of those defensive tackle spots or maybe an end, but playing more like 4 and 5 technique. But showed an aptitude to get to the passer, to make big plays. And so this seems like a really good pickup. And I feel like the challenge is going to be, okay, now you got to hold on to him because he's got an impressive offer list. If he has a big-time senior season, which I assume he will, again, 26 tackles for loss last year. He was the district newcomer of the year in 2022, as a sophomore, 14-6A defensive newcomer of the year as a sophomore, and will continue to just make plays at Spring, Texas. But really good evaluation and get by the staff. Get a commitment from a guy who is being highly recruited by a lot of big-time schools. And if Texas is interested in an interior defensive lineman prospect, I think that says a lot because, I mean, Montez Sweat was fantastic. Like they've had their fair share of guys come through there lately who can get after the passer from that position. And that's such a huge premium and plus. If you can do that from the interior, that's a big deal. So really good pickup by TCU getting Floyd Guidry in their 2025 class. And he, as the fold there as a defensive lineman, 3-star player from Spring, Texas. And we'll be excited to see what his senior year looks like. That's now 5 commits. So Ty Hawkins, the quarterback from San Antonio, Ed Small from Anderson High School in Austin, Chance Abels, wide receiver, who played at Nauman Forest first couple of years of his career. Looks like he's going to transfer to Dallas Christian School next season. Chris Jimerson, who's listed as an athlete, as a quarterback right now at Crowley. And I would watch that Chris Jimerson commitment because you always wonder with guys like that, if somebody does come around and say, hey, we think you can play quarterback, did they jump at that opportunity? Because, I mean, Chris has been a really successful quarterback at the high school level for the past few years. But adding that fifth player to that class by getting Floyd Guidry in the fold, the defensive lineman from Spring, Texas. We will come back and talk some baseball. And I wish I had more positive news for you, but a rough weekend for the Frogs in Stillwater. And saying that a lot lately. That's coming up next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Perfect segue, because we were just talking about recruiting, talent acquisition, all those things. They're so important if you own a small business or you're in charge of hiring, and you should be using LinkedIn. Like, there's no question about it. You have to use LinkedIn. Go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. You can post your job for free there at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. They have all kinds of innovative tools there, and you're going to get a lot of applications, because LinkedIn is a place if you need to find work, the first thing that people think of is LinkedIn. It's the name in finding jobs and acquiring talent. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. You can post your job for free there. You'll get plenty of applicants. You can pare it down with their screening questions and different innovative tools to make it easy to find the right person to hire. It's why 86% of small businesses rate LinkedIn as their number one job board. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. LinkedIn, use them today to find your next great employee. So TCU traveled to Stillwater this weekend. On Friday night, Peyton Tolle put together an absolute masterclass. He threw a complete game shutout. TCU won that ball game 1-0. He struck out 15 batters, and apparently it was a personal game for him. Peyton's from Oklahoma. Supposedly he was really hoping for an Oklahoma State offer out of high school. That never came. He goes to Wichita State, then he transfers to TCU. His mom was also there, and his mom has been battling cancer. So prayers up to that family. But what an amazing outing by him. I mean, he was just absolutely fantastic. Was lights out. TCU took a 1-0 lead in the second inning, and really it was never in danger. I think in the seventh, Oklahoma State had runners on first and second with nobody out. He was able to get a bouncing ball to third base. They almost turned a triple play. They ended up turning a double play, and then he struck out the next batter. He threw 130 pitches. Just an absolute monster performance, and best starting performance of the year by far. Great job by Tolle getting them the victory on Friday. Unfortunately, that's where the good vibes would end. Offense really struggled on Friday. They continue to struggle all weekend. They struck out 39 times this weekend and had 11 hits. Just a really bad ratio. And the most concerning thing to me is these are not super competitive at bats right now. I mean, this is not a team that's even really like grinding out at bats and seeing a lot of pitches. There's a lot of 3- and 4-pitch strikeouts. Guys just flailing at everything. You can tell guys are pressing. They're struggling right now. I mean, everyone's struggling. There's not a person in this lineup right now. Chattanay has cooled off. Chase Brunson, Ryder Robinson, who I think are going to be outstanding players, but had a really good start to their freshman season. They're not hitting the ball. Ryder Robinson had an RBI double on Sunday, and that was like the biggest hit of the weekend. TCU took a 2-0 lead. Unfortunately, a rain delay happens. Luis Rodriguez has to exit the game. Braden Sloan comes in and continues to struggle, and they end up losing 6-2. On Saturday, Cole Klecker got roughed up in the first inning, gave up 4 runs. He sort of settled in. Bullpen did their job, but TCU just could not score. And a couple weekends ago, when they lost 2 out of 3 to Kansas, I said, hey, no team has earned the benefit of the doubt more than TCU baseball. Not just because of what they've done last year, but going back to Jim Schlossnagle and then Kirk Saarloos taking over, they have always found a way to be in the mix towards the end of the season. It's just, I mean, they have been the most consistent program other than maybe like rifle and tennis over the past decade plus. I'm starting to have serious doubts. The lineup's a mess right now. Nobody's hitting the ball. The starting pitching has still not really been figured out. If Peyton Tolle continues to pitch like this, and you obviously have a Friday night arm that you can go to and feel good about. Cole Klecker continues to struggle. I would like to see Luis Rodriguez get another Sunday start. We'll see what happens this week. They play Houston Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And listen, I understand all the anecdotes. Yes, last year they got hot at the right time. They got it done. It's baseball. It's a long season. You got 21 more conference games, yeah, 7 more conference series. You got a chance to dig out of this. But the urgency has to be now. Like, you got to go sweep Houston. You at least need to take 2 out of 3. But even if you take 2 out of 3, you're sitting at 4-8. Like, you got to start stringing together 5-6 wins in a row if you're going to do this and give yourselves a chance here at the end of the season. So it's definitely put up or shut up time for this team, and they know that. I understand it, but there's just not a lot of positive signs right now. I mean, Kyle Ayers has been one of the most consistent arms out of the bullpen. He went out with an injury on Saturday. It's just rough. There's not really a consistent presence on this team at the moment. And yeah, I know their overall record is still good, but they're 2-7 in conference play. Like, you have to right the ship, and you have to do it quickly. So we'll see what happens to TCU baseball. No midweek game. Series on Thursday, Friday, Saturday because of the Easter weekend against Houston. And man, is it a big one. Got to start stringing some wins together if you're TCU. We'll be back tomorrow with more coverage of TCU athletics. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team, and we do it here every day.